love is for everyone, and it is for everyone. There's no question about it. I think where we need to start is not to question ourselves and not to question others on where they belong.
For lonely hearts, dating online can be a savior, especially when something big, say a great distance or a global pandemic, makes it hard to meet people in real life. But what about when those apps and online spaces aren't all that helpful because they don't cater to your disability? Where do we turn to, and how do we stay hopeful? Hey everyone, I'm Evelyn Sharma, and this is Love Matters, a podcast about relationship topics that matter to you and me, from DW and Indian Express. And today we're talking about dating online with a disability. What to look out for, what to look forward to, and some tips for everyone to help make online spaces a bit more inclusive and friendlier for all. I'm really excited to welcome our guest for this episode to help us do just that. Disability and gender rights activist Nidhi Goyal is also a researcher, writer, trainer, and stand-up comedian besides being an advocate. After losing her sight as a teenager, Nidhi devoted herself to raising awareness and making positive changes to the lives of people living with disabilities in India. She is the founder and executive director of the Mumbai-based nonprofit Rising Flame, which works to improve the rights for people in the disabled community, particularly women and young people. And she is also a former global advisor for UN Women. Thank you so much for being with us today, Nidhi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Evelyn. It's my pleasure to be on this show. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. So I was doing a bit of background reading on your journey and achievements, which are many, some of which I've already mentioned. But I also wanted to hear from you in your own words. What is it that you do and why do you do it?
This question is as complicated as it can get and as simple as it can get, right? So I am, you know my name, but I basically work with people with disabilities and for people with disabilities, being disabled myself, right? I think I want to say this. You can call me an activist, you can call me an inclusion specialist, you can call me someone who's dedicated their life on advancing rights for persons with disabilities. But basically, what I do, and this is really coming from my heart, is what I'm doing is that we creating a space where we understand that we all are a part of society.
Right.
That inclusion is really the way we need to go forward. There is no you and me, there is no us and them. And I think that is what I'm working for. And I'd like to define myself in that way.
Beautiful. And quick check on your current chapter of life that you're in. What's your current relationship status?
Currently married.
Uh-huh.
not yet bored of my husband.
That's
so
good.
That's my current status.
Same here. Currently married. When did you guys get married?
Actually, this 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, me too. My wedding day is 15th of May. So it is actually 2 years ago.
Wow, mine is 30th April, Evelyn.
Look at that.
Oh my God.
I feel
promise you guys we didn't coordinate all of this.
And I don't know if I'm newlywed or I still sometimes feel like it. Like I have no idea what we're doing. But then sometimes I also feel like we've been in this forever. Do you feel like that too?
Great, you and I can start a support group of people who got married during the pandemic.
That's right.
that was even a thing. I'd really thought of starting that group.
I think you do enough, okay? I think no need to start a new one. All right, let's wind back the clock a bit before we hear more about your husband. Because I want to know about your history with online dating, since that's our topic today. How much experience with dating apps or online dating tools have you had before you met your husband?
How much is a difficult question, but I'll tell you what periods. I've had three spells in my life, maybe, when I went onto these online platforms. The first time when I thought I was heartbroken, and I was like, hey, but I'm not maybe looking at the right place. So I logged onto matrimonial sites, and I was like, okay, let's find a life partner, and not get into this whole, oh, I'm in love with this person and I want to go out and let's directly jump into marriage. And I was for 6 months on, and I say quantifiably because it seems like a very short time, but the kind of experiences that I had, or the responses that I got on this these matrimonial sites, it was so hilarious and entertaining on multiple levels because I was a woman and I logged in by myself, and I will come to that probably. There was this next time when I wanted to write about online dating apps for persons with disabilities, and I was like, hey, I can't do this. I have to first log in myself.
Right. True.
So that was when I was briefly on dating apps. And I'll tell you more about what turned me off at that point. And the third time was when I thought I had Christmas break. And I said, oh, this is the month I have time in life. And I have been wanting to get onto dating apps for a while. And so why don't I do this? And so interesting experiences from that too.
Okay. Well, so you've kind of dabbled around a bit in all types of dating apps. I've had conversations with quite a few people now that have shared their, pros and cons about dating apps. And some people like them, some people don't, right? So where do you stand now after your dating experience? What were your good and bad experiences?
So one of the most interesting experiences is the kind of silence, particularly on matrimonial apps, that meets with you. So first, people don't realize, even if you're bold and say, I am blind, etc., which I did on my matrimonial profile. Either people aren't reading or they don't register because you're not expecting someone with a disability to be in these spaces, right? If you're expecting people with disabilities to be in the spaces, you're already expecting the apps or the algorithms to cut them out, right? So not to match them with you. So you have that kind of faith that this is a different category and I would never be matched with them. Because very often here you're ticking your preferences. So you're saying, this particular kind living here, or this kind of work, or these kind of thoughts, and you end up matching. The platform ends up matching you, but you actually didn't want to match someone with a disability. And so these are the basic problems, right? And so I've met with these sort of responses where I would get a call and I'd be like, I'm blind, is it okay? Because very often on matrimonial websites, it's the parents. And so and I've met with stutters and fumbles and upsetness and rage and hilarity, because I remember this one time, this man called me up. And he was like, yes, I understand pain because I'm so lonely in life and I hate my mother and my brothers hate me and my siblings are blah. And, I'd really like to know you. And it was very, very like his whole, not his story. I mean, that was a turn off at another level.
Yeah.
But his whole voice, his demeanor, his approach, everything was not really attractive. And I was just being polite that how do I, let me find a way to hang up. And by the end, he was like, oh, I really want to take this ahead, but I really hope you don't have a problem. There's a criminal case of dowry going on me. And
that's a problem.
And I was like, do not contact me ever again. Here is where I wanted to find polite and nice. And I just got a good way to hang up because this is a non-negotiable. And so, but it's also like, which group of people think it's okay to approach people with disabilities, right? Obviously you're like, oh, so this is less than me and this is going to be a perceived problem. So let's go and find a disabled person. They'll be so desperate to be with someone that they'll be okay with it, right? So I think this is one of the experiences. But I also had very interesting experiences on the last leg when I said the dating app that I was on, where, the way I introduced my disability, of course, my photographs have most of the times me holding a white cane, right? Because I'm blind.
Mm.
But as much as public awareness goes, people don't register the white cane again because we don't imagine that there'll be a disabled person on the app. Otherwise, why wouldn't you? Where, on dating apps where we know that people scrutinize photographs and look at their hair color and hearing and details and da da da,
Mm.
why would you not recognize a white cane in someone's hand, right?
Yeah.
You automatically overlook because you don't expect someone to be there.
Right.
But anyway, so my way of introducing was once we got chatting, they'd be like, tell me more about you. And I'd paste a link to my stand up set.
That's very good.
So, as an entry point to say, and because my opening says I'm blind, so is love. And I was like, hello.
Right.
So here is the information plus my humor plus a warning that there'll be a set on you later. So
That's so
I
good. Well, I guess not everyone has a stand-up set to share, but
I'm sorry. That was just what I did. I wasn't saying everyone should do it. And I was this guy turned around and he said,
no,
oh
that's
my
very
God, it's
cool.
so amazing how you mask your pain in humor. I'm like, what pain? It's
Oh
like,
no.
he's like, you don't have to hide from me. I'm like, hide what?
Oh my
So
goodness.
I went on for 15 minutes to prove that there was sorrow in my life and how disability was my sorrow. And I was using stand up comedy to cope with it. And
Oh,
that's why all the jokes were quote unquote self derogatory. I was like, do you
what?
understand English? Because my quotes were not self derogatory, they were derogatory of the people
No.
who are actually ableist, right?
I watch your stand-up shows and they're hilarious. I love your humor. I feel like it's so empowering. And I feel like, a lot of people, when they go online dating, can be a bit of a doorway, of course, to love and romance that they wouldn't have usually been able to locate otherwise.
Right.
Either, because they're shy and introverted, they're looking for something very specific, or sometimes it's dangerous for them to be public about who they want to love.
Yes.
Um, from your experience and the people that you know, are there any other fears?
It still gives you that opportunity to say I'm disabled, right?
Absolutely.
In an in-person space, the person looks at you and walks away.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're in a party, and it's very hilarious because in my college days, I remember someone from the college, and this was a young guy. He was like, "Hey, you girls! So now all of you in your group have boyfriends." And I was like, "I am in the group. I don't have a boyfriend." It's like, "Yeah, but you are you, right? Everybody, your entire group is now dating someone." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, so
Mm.
there is an invisibilization to another level, and it's to your face.
Mm.
Right? In the online space, I feel like there's still, I say that people are not expecting you, but you're still there. They can choose not to engage with you later, but the fact that you're there on a dating app is clearly sending the signal that you're here to date,
Right.
which is not something that you can do in a personal, like a social space or a party or a college or educational university, etc. Right?
Mm.
So I think this also is important for that. The second is to connect with people. Not all social spaces are accessible. And so online dating opens up that way to connect to people where you may have been excluded or may really have wanted to go to that freshers party. And it wasn't just in an accessible venue, there was no support, it
Mm.
was intimidating, you were worried if people would judge you. Online dating makes that link to the accessibility, of course, if the online app is accessible. And that
Mm.
really brings to one of the stories that I have, the experience when I, for research, got onto the dating apps. And I remember I took a friend's help because, you have to choose your picture. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, let me choose a good picture. But also tell me, this app is not built in the right way. So it just says button, button, button. Where's the accept and the reject button? So they just told me, like, on the left is this, on the right is this.
Mm.
And I left that for 15 days because I wasn't really like dating intensively, right? Looking for a partner. After
Mm.
15 days, I opened the app and I very confidently, banking on my memory, kept clicking the button I thought was
Oh
accept.
no. Oh
And
no.
I had a friend visit me, the same friend. He's like, hey, did you try the rest of it? I said, yes, look, I haven't received responses, or there are responses. I'm a little baffled by all of this. And he was like, what have you done? Why did you like this person? They've sent you weird photos.
Oh
I'm like,
God. Oh God.
And I was like, okay, this is the yes button, right? And he's like, no, this is the no button. But then I got curious and I said, what photos has he sent? So it was about, apparently they were nude pictures.
Oh,
And
goodness.
I laughed out loud. And my friend's like, women are generally horrified. Why are you laughing? I said, I'm really pitying him. What a waste. He didn't realize I'm blind, so he can't creep me out.
Oh, thank goodness. Well, do you think there should be maybe separate apps for people with a disability? Should there be different apps for different disabilities? Or do you feel like, no, that's not really inclusion? So that's just gonna,
I absolutely don't think that's the way to go, right?
yeah,
Making segregated pockets of this group should only be with this group, that group should only be with
yeah,
that group does not help any of us. It does not help us also in life if we don't accept this, because today you could be non disabled, tomorrow you could be disabled, right? I was a non disabled kid when I was growing up. So
mm.
it's not like I was born with a disability. If we
Hmm.
don't work towards that understanding of inclusive societies, and I'm saying I'm taking relationship and dating as an example because we are talking about dating, families, children,
Yeah,
like all of that circuit, right? If you leave disabled people out of it or any kind of diversities, right?
yeah,
We're basically looking at a society where we're talking to ourselves or mirror images of ourselves.
yeah,
And that's not a way to grow collectively, achieve anything, nothing. And
right.
so I absolutely, there are some disabled people who would say yes, and they also come from a space of we're tired of rejection, so we rather be in a space where we're treated with dignity and equality, right?
Hmm.
And I had this conversation because there are some dating apps which are exclusively for disabled persons, right? And they're like, yes, I'd rather be on that because I'm tired of sensitizing everybody else. I'm tired of being judged in so many places. And this is not what I want to do.
Hmm.
So that's why people also opt, but I am absolutely not for it.
Yeah. So now, for like a woman, a blind woman, what do you wish for to see on a dating app? I mean, now you're not single, but maybe other blind women. What would they love to kind of, is there, do they need the audio description? Or how
Yes.
could the app make it more inclusive?
I would just say accessibility. The first thing is just when you're coding the app, please just follow the accessibility guidelines. It just doesn't
Okay.
add cost. These are web accessibility guidelines. They're
Hmm.
easily available online, and all coders can use this. Web developers can use this. Just very basic steps to make things accessible. Like
Okay.
there are headings that are put, buttons that are labeled,
Hmm.
very, very basic design and non-design development piece at the back end for all apps, websites, everything. So first step would be that, so that I'm not saying yes to people I want to say no to, right? Because both your buttons are just called buttons by my screen reader and not labeled properly, right?
Okay. Well, see, there you go. Like that is something so rather simple for a coder to add
Yes,
in, isn't it?
yes. It's absolutely simple.
That's
And
awesome.
for everybody else, if you want to put a little image description of yourself,
Yeah.
or everybody loves to like say, hey, look at that red dress that I'm wearing, or look at that shirt, or my beard looks wonky in this picture, or it's really neatly trimmed. Just put that in a description. You know what? People would love that. Not just looking at your pictures, even non disabled folks would love like reading the description that you have written about yourself and your images. It's called image descriptions and very, very basic from the user point of view. If you just put a little image description, it just becomes even better for someone who is blind or low vision. And we have seen for others who have some other diversities within the spectrum, right?
Hmm.
But one feature that can make it super fun, and WhatsApp did it, right? Earlier, if you remember, WhatsApp was only chat, then there
Hmm.
was audio, and then there was video.
Hmm.
Just the audio button option to leave each other audio messages and not just text messages, to have both those built-in options in most of the apps. That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah.
The basic thing is don't screen people out. I still remember that one of the app requests is still pending after 2 years because they ask you to log in and connect your Facebook and they approve people who they have to approve. So, yeah. And so in my friend circle, most of my friends have been approved on that app. I was never approved on the app. I never had the opportunity to log in. And it's very clear why.
Do you feel like they clearly don't want people with a disability on their apps, or it's an
Yeah,
honest mistake?
I don't. think it could be a mistake, but I really feel that there is a certain way that we segregate society, right? So even if you go on the matrimonial apps, there are matrimonial websites, there is category. There is a category of caste, there is a category of religion, there is a category of
Wow.
disability, there is a category of income, right? So we know
Right.
how you want people to be filtered. And so I'm really not saying that everybody should be with disabled people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying let them be on the same platform,
Hmm.
right? That's our first step to even begin with.
Hmm.
Imagine it's like saying that this is an app only for white women.
Hmm.
So you have to upload your photo and they'll approve if you can be on the app or not.
Hmm.
It's really like that, right? So what we're just saying is leave that space open. Let's take that as first step. Think
Hmm.
of that space as people with diversities existing. So make the backend or the coding accessible. And third, for users, that's a step three, because then we're talking about inclusive societies, to think about, hey, there could be all kinds of people here. Why don't I put a little image description? Maybe everyone would enjoy. Yeah, maybe I put a little voice chat option and that makes it super personal. So half of the things where you have to exchange personal information, people are
Hmm.
hesitating to get onto calls, some of that doesn't happen. It's not going to make it super safe, but if a 50-year-old man is saying that he's 20, the minute you have a voice chat, you might mostly be able to know that he's not,
Yeah.
right? So it builds in a lot of things that we don't, and has a lot of impact that we may not factor in at the outset.
Well, I hope some people from the apps are listening today. So we see some of these changes. Well, you've met your husband not online and not on a dating app. So tell us, how did you meet him?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's always interesting. So we were friends for many years, but it's so interesting the way we met as friends. He read about me in a newspaper
Oh, really?
where some of
Happy
my
to
work and
hear.
achievements were covered, and
Yes.
he found out he wanted to connect for further information on some access possibilities. He wanted to connect with my brother, who's also blind and has done an MBA from Wharton.
Mm.
And so he couldn't find his number, so he found mine. And we got chatting, and he didn't connect with my brother for months after that. But it's also been an interesting journey because online dating did figure out in our piece. We didn't meet through online dating, but he was the one who encouraged me to get onto Tinder, let's say. And he
Okay.
started me off with, because we were friends and we were helping each other find mates. So
Mm-hmm.
he went on to Tinder, and I was trying to write really serious responses. And he was like, "Oh my God, do you not know this platform? Here, let me chat for you." And he put all these cheesy comments of like, ooh, look at those biceps. I'm like, no, no, you do not do this. So
Oh,
there was this
goodness.
one evening where he grabbed my phone and he was like, "I'll chat on your behalf." And he put some three, four
Aw.
random messages to random men. And I was like, that's it. You do not ever touch my phone.
Oh, that's funny. And you guys kind of had to do a bit of online dating, so to speak, because of the pandemic.
Yes,
So you did get to know each other quite a bit over the phone. Is that
absolutely.
right?
Yes.
And do you think that is actually something great or something you wish, you could have just been together next to each other?
That would have always been amazing, right? To be with each other
Yeah.
next to each other. I think he asked me out and the world couldn't handle it, so the pandemic hit. He
Aww.
asked me out in Jan, and in March we were in lockdown.
Oh, goodness. It's so hard.
It's really hard. And I don't do long
Yeah.
distance very well. The only way I thought our relationship would work is because he was living in Delhi, I was living in Mumbai, and I for work I traveled to Delhi many a times in a month. So the possibilities of meeting him while he was in Delhi was much higher rather than if he
Yeah.
was living in Mumbai, because of my travel schedule. So anyway, I think what's important, and this again circles back, and so I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into how our relationship worked. was how online factors in, right? So we're talking about online dating apps per se, but what online dating means when you live with a disability. You have to first search which of the chat platforms are accessible. Fortunately, some of them are, right? Then you have to see if your everything that's going on around is accessible. So yes, there are comedians doing these online stand-up comedy shows. Which booking platform are they using? Right? And is
Mm.
that accessible for us to go on that virtual date with each other? Right?
Mm.
So it just is adds so many layers. For I think 3 weeks into the lockdown, he did not ask me for a video call. And I was really, really upset. I was like, do you not want to look at me? Like, what has happened? He lives with low vision. I am completely blind. But I was
Mm.
like, you can see that much. Like, why wouldn't you want to look at me, right? Because it's a new relationship, and you're
Mm.
perplexed, and you also have, I wouldn't call it insecurities, but there are in any, and no matter how many years you know them as a friend, it's a new relationship, right?
Of course.
And so I was like, why don't you want to look at me? And I was so upset. And he's like, but wouldn't that be inconvenient for you? I said, I don't care. Look at me. And so, we
Mm.
basically, that's when we started doing video calls.
Mm.
But also, it was interesting because I, at some point, told him, but I feel like I'm missing out. Because for me,
Yeah.
when I sat next to you, I knew you were nodding your head in a certain way, or your cheeks were going up in a mischievous way and you were going to crack a joke, like things like that, right? Which I
Mm.
know a little bit from your voice, of course, because I know you for many years, but I'm missing out on all that. And I just said this to him, and from the next call, he started describing what he was doing on the other end. Like he was like, hey, so I'm folding clothes while we're talking, okay? Oh my God, there's
Mm.
tons of washing here. So, whatever you would see as a couple, so if you did a video call with a partner or two-sighted folks did a video call with each other, the information that you would absorb automatically saying, oh my God, you're in the middle of a pile of clothes. He'd
Mm.
just describe it for me. So when I said that there were little like image descriptions that he would put, he just did an audio description of whatever was happening around him or at home. And I thought that was really, really, it was beautiful actually for me because it brought us much more closer. It brought the sensitivity up.
Mm. Right. So, for all the listeners out there who can relate to your story and experience, who might be living with a disability and or feeling excluded from dating apps and online spaces, people who want to seek romance, find love, but they're hesitant about dating online, what tips do you have? What tips do you suggest?
You won't find someone without putting yourself out there. It's difficult for everyone. It may be particularly difficult or challenging for you in some areas or some not, but it won't happen till you don't trust yourself. I think the second thing is really accept yourself before you want someone else to accept you.
Mm.
Don't be embarrassed. I've
Mm.
heard stories like, I, I need, like, I'm not sure if I can hold my bladder, and so I need to visit the loo very often with my condition, and I feel embarrassed about that. On a date, I think just being okay with your body, just being okay with who you are, just being okay with your condition, if it's a psychosocial disability or a chronic illness, whichever else, right? I think without self love, this is not going to happen.
Mm.
And it takes, the third one is, it takes time to build trust, empathy, and understanding. And it works both ways. So, yeah. The last, biggest,
Mm.
and broader thing to remember is everybody faces rejection for some reason or the other. So, if we just look at it as a larger piece of dating, it will hurt us less.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well said. And thank you so much, Nidhi, again for being with us today and sharing so openly with us. I'm sure our listeners could take away a lot from our chat. I'm pretty impressed about your actionable steps that you can share with us, whether it's for app developers or for a person with a disability to just have some courage and get out there because there are people that want to meet you, that want to meet people to fall in love with.
Absolutely. Yes. I do want to say at the end, Evelyn, that love is for everyone. And it
Absolutely.
is for everyone. There's no question about it. I think where we need to start is not to question ourselves and not to question others on where they belong. That's all I'd like to say on this fantastic show of yours, because love really matters for all of us. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And listeners, I highly recommend you check out Nidhi Goyal's work and follow her. You can find her on Instagram. Her handle is at says Nidhi Goyal, and the name of her organization is Rising Flame. You can also find that on Instagram at rising_flame. We'll have both linked in the show notes too. And thank you so much for listening today. Remember, if you have any love or dating questions and stories to share, send them our way at lovematters@dw.com. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you're using right now. And of course, share it with a friend. I'm Evelyn Sharma, and I think love matters.
Love matters. Love matters.